By the way, just you know, there's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza.
You think that's a good
There's
point?
not one public bomb shelter in Gaza?
Oh, no, he's doing hospital points. Oh,
Okay.
Sam's going to cook him.
That's
Go ahead. They're going to say January 6th? Come on, dude. Dude, if brown dudes wearing keffiyehs stormed the fucking Capitol, they would be melted with machine gun fire. What are we talking about, January 6th? Go ahead. Tell me about... Do you know what the First Amendment is supposed to protect you from? It's not to protect you or shelter you from criticism for exercising your free speech. It is supposed to protect you from the government enforcing your speech, the government controlling your speech. It's a protection for you against the government. Anyway, Sam is on. Let's take a look.
Sam Seder, what a fucking nightmare.
How have you been, Sam, since we ruined Steven Crowder's life together? Nice to see you again.
I've been feeling very badly for him.
Yes,
over the years.
It's a tragic loss of a great career and so much potential.
Yes, it is. Hey, are we live now?
We are live on the H3 channel, yes.
I want to just start by sort of apologizing in that I sent you a DM on Twitter 6 months ago or something. I was just going through to find out, and then I just realized you're no longer on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that
He
explains
say what,
why
Dan?
Is on go in his chat? What do you mean?
He may no. Yeah, I didn't see it. I wish I would have, but honestly,
What do you mean?
I don't know what to do because like I want to get off Twitter, but also it's kind of a pain because Twitter is the way that like I would reach out and speak to most people. But I also don't want to be on a platform that's like owned and perpetuates basically like Nazi
Why would I
shit,
go in his
so.
chat?
Yeah, this was yes, I understand that.
Yeah,
but I just wanted you to know I did reach out, and it was on me not to realize that. I just assumed you didn't want to respond, but.
Okay, well,
me.
That's nice to know that you reached out. I appreciate that. And the reason, I mean, obviously, people have been pushing for this conversation. I don't know if you know, like, the whole lore of it, the background of it. I
mean, this is all I know is that Hasan reached out to me sometime. I mean, I got in touch with you October 24th, and I said that I was meaning to reach out for a couple of weeks. So I assume it was sometime in early October, and my thought we were just going to do this off air, but
That's what I wanted.
My
I was
understanding
like, talk to him
is
privately.
that you and he were getting into it, and you felt like because he wasn't Jewish, he didn't have a perspective on this, and that's why he suggested that you speak to me. I don't speak for all Jews, just to be clear.
Right.
I speak for only myself as a in any form.
Well,
whatsoever,
Sam,
so.
allow me to speak for all Jews, if I may, today.
Please.
No, well, actually, I mean, that's a total mischaracterization, which is kind of my problem with Hasan, which we can get into if you want. We don't even have to talk about Hasan. But basically, what I told him was that I was citing polling data that shows that about 70 to 80% of diaspora Jews
he's gonna cook
have
him.
some
it's
kind of
coming.
positive feelings
Oh, Sam
towards
is
the
gonna
state
cook
of
his
Israel.
ass. He's gonna
And
be
he
like,
was
that's faulty
disagreeing
data.
with
It's
me.
bullshit.
And, I mean, this is available by polls, readily available by Pew Research just last month, showing that. And I have, I don't know if you're quite,
He's
if
gonna
you
say,
agree with
that's
that
just
or not. I can pull it up.
American Jews saying Israel's important to them. Israel's important to me, but that doesn't mean that I like Israel.
At least positive feelings about the state of Israel. I was stating that fact to him, and he was saying that I was wrong.
That is just
and
a
I said,
question
who are you to
answered
talk about
by
this? I did not say
diaspora Jews about
only
whether
listen to
Israel is
Jewish
important to
people,
them or not. That doesn't
which is
mean
a
that they're
little bit
Zionists.
presumptuous and a
Israel's
little
important to
I
me in
don't
my
think
life
that,
as well.
That's not what I took him to say, but yeah, I mean, Hasan is that's irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I haven't seen that poll. I've seen ones that have said that they have a connection. They feel a connection, either strong or somewhat.
Yeah.
Which is different than positive per se.
So
but regardless, I mean, I
Yeah.
think if I don't know your upbringing at all, but I mean, certainly my upbringing, my Hebrew education was, I would say, 1/3 Holocaust, and I'm older, and so this was in the 70s. 1/3 into the 80s, 1/3 Holocaust, 1/3 Israel, 1/3 Hebrew, Hebrew and Jewish culture. And I certainly feel a strong connection to Israel, but I wouldn't call it positive these days.
Sure. I think what the poll attempts to is basically, if you ask Hasan or a lot of people on the left, I think an emotional attachment is the way to describe this. So it's like, if you think
I certainly have an emotional attachment, and it's not, but it's not. I wouldn't describe it as positive.
This isn't the one, is it, Dan?
There's
the one that shows 73%.
Dude, he's saying just because you have an attachment to Israel doesn't mean
anyway,
that
it doesn't really
Zionist.
matter. Regardless, basically, I want to flesh out my ideas, my thoughts, because I'm being characterized by Hasan and a lot of his cohorts as being, a Zionist, being pro-Israel, being a Israel apologist, being a genocide supporter, being a baby killer, being married to a baby killer, et cetera, right? My wife is Israeli. I don't know if you know that. So basically, I would like to just take the opportunity to explain my ideas, what I think about Israel, and you can tell me what you think, because apparently I will only listen to other Jewish people. So finally, I can speak to someone whose opinion matters to me. So thank you, as the official sanctioned Jewish man, Sam Seder, everybody.
No one said that.
100% Ashkenazi.
That is also a mischaracterization. He has
I haven't
lived experience,
but
and I'm
quite sure I have some Sephardic Jewish ancestry too. So I would mix.
That's good.
Vilnius and Hungary, I think.
Good for you. I think that's always a good thing. My friend, I'm 99.3%, so that's my.
All right,
that's where my authority comes from.
I'll take your word for it.
So at any rate, let me start here by showing you a little context.
Oh, let me also just say, I got about an hour.
Okay, great.
Get home.
I'll just get into it then. Here it is.
Not enough. That's not enough time, Uncle.
Okay, whatever. So let's start here. Let's start with a little icebreaker here. I know we're both fans of Tim Pool. Okay, let's just enjoy this image together. Tim Pool recently at a wedding.
Wait, what?
And can you see that?
Did he get married?
Well, I think he's attending a wedding.
Okay.
And he's very formally
stalling?
dressed, except he appears to be wearing a beanie.
I would. I'm aware of his beanie attachment.
Bro!
So I don't know.
Why are you filibustering the conversation?
Fine look for our good friend Tim Pool there. Very good.
Nice suit.
Yeah. So well, let me ask you this: what have you kind of like heard about me? Because I mean, I know that your colleagues have an opinion.
I got to be honest with you. I have not heard much. I have, like, the only thing I really saw that came up in any of my mentions on Blue Sky, I'm also on Blue Sky, is just this issue about talking to me, and I had presumed that was it. But I don't, look, from my perspective, I'm not, and I know that there's been, you mentioned in the email that there's been a lot of grief that you have taken, and I know that other people have also taken grief on all sides of this. And the personal aspects of this, and I don't believe that people. I don't actively attempt to deplatform people. I don't think people should do that. I don't think people should be swatted.
This is not going well.
Try to be fired or whatever, or have CPS sicked on them or any of that. I mean, I just don't think that's appropriate. I mean, I'm more interested in talking about my relationship to Zionism and my perspective on what Israel is doing, and what is happening in Gaza. And
I totally agree. Let's just talk about the facts. Let me start by showing you this clip. So I've been actually talking about my feelings on the Israel, Gaza, Palestinian dispute
He's gonna present
situation
himself
for
as like
a long
an
time.
advocate
I
for
lived in Israel for
Palestinians.
5 years as well when I was
Knowing
with my
full well
wife
that
early
Sam
on.
doesn't know the full scope
Here's my
of his
position
perspective.
right after October 7th. And you can tell me if you have any if you have any comments on any of my positions here. But this was posted on this was from our episode a few days after
he's gonna
October 7th.
Showcase himself as like pro-Palestinian unconditionally.
Liars and bad faith weirdos. So here's what I'll say about Israel, okay? Listen, this isn't the first time I've said it, and I'll say it many more times. The cabinet is run by genocidal maniacs, okay? They're led by Netanyahu, who should resign in disgrace and go to prison for being a war criminal, okay? He's made a coalition of the most radically conservative freaks that don't represent, by the way, the majority of Israelis. And they're hell-bent on genocide, frankly, overtly. They've committed tons of war crimes in Gaza, including the killing of children, obviously, because Gaza is one of the most densely populated places in the world.
I wonder what this background is.
50% of the residents are under 18, so when you bomb a building,
I wonder
the chances that
I wonder what the background of this show is that he's on, where he's saying these things.
Okay? It's fucking barbaric. It's unacceptable. It's disgusting.
What is Chad saying?
I've seen videos, I saw videos of Palestinian dads holding his dead 5-year-old daughter.
La, la, la. I was there for this conversation. I know all of this.
I don't need to watch this part because it just gets a little too emotional.
This is precisely
I mean, so that was my take right after
This is precisely the reason why I
October 7th,
literally thought Ethan was with the cause for the longest time.
I'm an Israeli citizen. The morning of October 7th, me and my wife were up at 3 a.m. as families were calling into news stations from their safe houses, people being burned alive with their families being murdered while on the phone with news. So coming off of that emotional...
He's so brave. Thank you, Ethan, for saying Palestinians are humans and Israel is doing a genocide even after October 7th.
My reaction. Now, I don't know if there's something Zionist or pro-Israel I said there, but maybe I don't understand.
I think much of what you said was true. I'm not sure, frankly, if what we've seen Israel do in terms of Gaza is not broadly supported in Israel. I'm not seeing the body politic. I mean, I was doing a lot of interviews with Israeli reporters earlier in 2023 about the protests against what Netanyahu was doing with the judiciary. And there was a question as to whether Israelis would.
He's going to say Sam agrees with me and he hates you because you're anti-Semitic. That's like his goal here is to be like, why have you called me a Zionist when Sam believes that I'm not?
Places like the West Bank and in Gaza in some fashion, and more so the West Bank at that time. And so I think it's hard to make an argument. And look, I would make it's not a perfect analogy as to what's happening in this country, but when you talk about the Israeli population not having a problem with what's going on in Gaza, I don't see a lot of evidence of that. There's certainly, I would imagine, a percentage of Israelis, and I know some of them who think that Israel should stop its assault there, but I don't think I don't see a lot of evidence that a year and a half later,
he's
after
done so
you
much
said
more
those
Hasbro
things,
since then, so it's like disingenuous for him to present that.
This is not the character of the vast majority of Israeli society. I mean, I'm not necessarily convinced that they are as aware. I mean, I've talked to people who have reported in the West Bank, and they said they would go from the West Bank into Israel, and the lack of awareness of what was happening in the West Bank by Israelis was shocking to them. So, I can't say if if the Israeli population had a full understanding of what was happening in Gaza, that they wouldn't change their mind. But I don't see a lot of evidence of it.
So as you touched on, this was made basically before the war started. And I think that the unfortunate, really tragic outcome of the war is how much it's jaded
not a war, it's
and
a genocide.
radicalized. I think people in Israel.
It's not just Benjamin Netanyahu.
It's really,
it's Zionism.
I think people in Israel feel like isolated. They feel like, the sentiment in Israel is basically that the world wants, the country to disappear, and obviously, like that's a much more nuanced conversation. But the feeling there has definitely radicalized a lot since the war started. It's gotten a lot worse.
Not a war, it's a genocide.
And I think, I think that gets to it to some extent. I mean, you have this wholesale slaughter. I was looking up, we killed in Iraq, depending on what numbers you want to look at, but I think it's safe to say directly hundreds of thousands of people. But even like the number of children that we killed in Iraq, I think has been surpassed by what's happened in Gaza. And I think one of the things that I find shocking is that the sense and look, I experienced this with family members. Where the sense that there's a victimization, for instance, let's say on college campus of Jewish students, and I think that to look at what's going on, the totality of what's going on, and to perceive the victims of what's happening here to be the Israeli citizenry or Jews in this country, I think it just blows my mind. I mean,
two people can care about two things at once. Why should people?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
People who are uninvolved in the war, if they're being like victimized in a separate situation because of their Jewish identity, that's a problem, don't you think?
Oh, I do, but
you can care about two things. You can't be like, oh, these people are ridiculous for caring about anti-Semitism on college campuses because the war's happening. I mean, both we can care about two things.
100%.
And obviously, one is way worse, right? One is way worse.
But that's the point. I mean, one is way worse, and what's happening in Gaza.
But who should tolerate being discriminated against based on their identity? You know what I mean? Like, of course, who wouldn't react to that?
I don't think that people are. I don't think that people are being victimized. I mean, certainly, listen, anti-Semitism is real. It was real when I was a kid. There was many times I had pennies thrown at me growing up and playing basketball. I mean, there was a lot of. I've experienced anti-Semitism, but I would put it in the context of
which I agree with.
You're a parent, I'm a parent. If my kid is going through something very difficult, it's obviously difficult for me, but it's more difficult for them. And it's a question of prioritizing these things. You can have two thoughts in your head at the same time, but to center oneself or to perceive that one's victimization is sufficient to ignore the
I got to stop you because I don't think I don't know who's doing that.
Well, I just said like you just presented as the Israeli population feels like they're isolated and this and that.
There's two different separate conversations. There's like the American Jewry who's like, I have nothing to do with that place, and then the Israelis, right? So like when you're talking about,
in terms of the way that you characterized the Israeli feeling, was that they feel isolated, et cetera, and I can understand that, but to not have the first thought of like, we are
Sam will not let Ethan talk.
Committing, like you say, genocidal acts. And if people want to call it genocide, I don't, obviously it's got to be, it's a legal term, but I think that it's colloquially speaking, at the very least, it is a genocide. And to not recognize that as the fundamental issue, the first issue, I think is blinkered. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, it's a little gobsmacking to me.
Well, so I do agree with you that obviously in Israel, people, I I think the problem, and just to say on a higher level, I agree with you. Like, obviously, the people in Israel compared to like what's on October 7th, they were victims.
Point that Ethan is being
After everything that's
narcissistic
happened,
for
obviously,
centering
whatever they've
himself in this
suffered pales
conversation
in
about how he's
comparison
been
to
victimized as
the
though
mass
he's the biggest
destruction
victim of this
and, like,
entire
wanton
fucking
death
genocide
of civilians in Gaza and what's happening in the West Bank too. Lots of awful stuff. That being said, I think the problem
but he's
with
trying to
Israel,
serve it to
just to try to explain what's happening there, because I do agree with you, is just like the media apparatus and the feeling that they have there. It's like there's not a lot of space emotionally, and like even the information that they're consuming, I think that would allow them to have that kind of like self-realization. And like you said, a lot of Israelis don't know what's happening
there are
necessarily.
some. I mean,
there's some.
I'm
Yeah, of
so
course, there's some.
sorry. They're just simply little old, most powerful country in the region, and its citizenry that's championing this
out about
fucking
what was going on
Holocaust
there.
of children.
And the paper was essentially, a cutout, or there was an attempt by the government to basically shut them down.
He moved on from him being the victim to
some extent.
Israelis
I mean,
being the
so-
victims.
Well, so
of
what's
this
your
war.
explanation why Israelis don't care? It's not that they're evil, right?
Well, I think, look, there's, I'm sure that there is a mass, sort of like a failure to deal with trauma. But I think some of it is, frankly, is a racism. I think, how can you explain, how can I explain how I just watched a clip of people at a Trump rally chanting USA, USA, to watching a video of people being, taken into that prison in El Salvador and having their head I mean, I don't know how I can explain that. Home. So I don't know how I could explain how the Israelis are able to the extent that they can see what's going on in Gaza, have that reaction. But I know that it's wrong.
Off.
And I think, some of it undoubtedly is a racism. Some of it is,
Sam is
maybe some
me.
type of mass failure to deal with trauma. I mean, I don't know all those things. I think, part of it, I think there's some of the makeup of, immigrants to Israel over the past several decades. I'm sure all of that enters into it.
We had this conversation before.
I'm not in a position
on my
to
stream
sort of
where he
like
said
be
this
able
as
to
well.
psychoanalyze
it's
it beyond this sort of vague notions.
Sure.
But
yeah, and I
from
agree.
my perspective, it's gobsmacking, and to me, it has shown, and
of course
I
know
never
him very well
identified myself as a Zionist as a kid, or through the years, and I never identified myself as an anti-Zionist. I don't think I think those, it wasn't really until someone heard me articulate my perspective on this that they referred to me as anti-Zionist, and I have, I don't really care one way or another how I'm labeled, but to me, it shows a failure of that system of government that Israel has.
It's Zionism. That is the problem.
It has failed both,
and Ethan will never reconcile that.
What I think some people had as a notion of Zionism in the
Hannah Arendt.
19th
He's gonna
century.
bring up Hannah Arendt.
It has been a failure in terms of keeping Jews safe. Frankly, it seems to have been a massive failure, and so I can't operate as someone who lives in Israel, but I can operate as someone who is an American in terms of like what we support, which is why I think we should end all aid. And as a Jew who sees my religion being used as what I perceive as a fig leaf for what Israelis or, Zionists are doing. And so, that's where
this
I'm coming.
This is really important. This
from
conversation is great to have. I'm so glad he did this.
I don't know
I'm so glad Ethan did
if
this.
there is a psychological state that can justify this.
Oh, no, they're
fact,
too stupid to understand it, though.
I don't think there is. And so,
it's just an attempt to understand, not justify. Because, it is what it is, right? Like, it is the way that it is. And so that's for a reason. And it's just, it's just trying to explain it. That's all. I agree with everything you're saying. But actually, one thing I want to pivot to and ask you about.
Do you think that we should cut all aid to Israel?
I think that'd be justifiable, yeah.
And
we're talking about like military aid and stuff. Yeah, for sure. Israel.
I mean,
Israel can make their own bombs and shit.
Every
if they need, like, they don't need American military.
Yes,
yeah, I agree with you on that.
I think they do need it to do what they're doing, without a doubt.
They do.
And
well, what I mean is they're not entitled to it. To say more accurately. Yeah. So yeah, I think military aid should be cut for sure until.
As a Jew, and you know, I mean, obviously you have a different connection to Israel than I do, as you know, through your family and whatnot, and through having lived there. But as a Jew,
Ethan W. They're so desperate for Ethan to come across as even remotely
to what is being done, ostensibly to protect me and my family and my ancestors and my progeny and all of it. It is. I mean, I think it's. I think the conflation of Zionism and Judaism is both not keeping Jews safe and is wrong at its core. And we can see what it's even doing in the context of this country, the way that it's enabled Trump and to attack universities and to attack law firms and whatever. And so I don't know.
By the way, I think Ethan is in agreement with Sam here.
Great.
He's walking back a lot of his positions, but I don't think Gila is in agreement
no, I mean,
with Sam
I
at
agree
all.
with everything you're saying. And part of the reason why, like, this chasm started between me and, you know, Hasan is very influential. So when he decides that somebody is an enemy of the movement for criticizing him, which is what I perceive happened, then it kind of becomes reality.
All the way up until the fucking context nuke.
Is
I didn't know the
him not
depravity.
supporting Kamala Harris. Now, would she have stopped the war and been like a perfect dove? I don't know, but I know she would have been better than Trump. I know that for sure. Trump's posting like this insane Riviera, Gaza, the Riviera with Trump hotels. I mean, that's and like he's sending the 20-pound bombs. He's telling Netanyahu, you have a blank check to do whatever you want.
They're watching me as well.
Like,
it just came out that Biden didn't, did nothing to. I mean, listen, I think.
Well, I'm talking about Kamala.
I suspect that
we don't know. We don't know what Kamala would have done.
I suspect.
Like, sure, it'll be marginally better, but we don't know.
She would not have had the same policies as Trump. But at the same time, I think that it was a massive failure, both on a real human level. Like, it would have, I think, had she articulated anything even remotely close to what I would hope
and that
her
was
difference
her
would have
failure.
been.
That's the reason why she lost.
Probably,
that was my point.
Had implications in
not
the election, but I think
from Biden's
perhaps
dangerous
even more importantly,
genocidal Gaza policy,
it would have
not removing herself, not severing her ties from Biden early on. That was my major point of contention with the Kamala Harris campaign, and that's what led her to lose.
I chose to support Harris because I perceived her as the lesser of two evils, but.
Yeah, me too, and I think that's an important distinction to make at a time like this. Yeah,
I can certainly understand how some people were just so repulsed by what was happening that it made it almost impossible for them to vote for Harris. I think
I understand why they didn't. I totally understand the perspective. Like, I'm so disillusioned with this administration, I can't support Kamala. But at the same time, like, a hugely influential political streamer like Hasan,
I never told people not to vote for Kamala.
On people, I think, and who's someone who
not to vote for Kamala Harris. That is a lie.
Who's very vocal about being pro-Palestine. I feel like it's an abdication of responsibility to be like, I'm not voting for Kamala, or I'm not telling you who I voted for. I suspect he voted for Jill Stein personally.
I hate Jill Stein.
But either way, he hasn't said, and he wouldn't endorse her. Now, like, if you're just like a random protester or whatever, and like you're like, I'm so disgusted, I don't want to vote, that's fine. But if you're like a high-level political streamer, and you know, basically, you have the capacity to weigh like the lesser of two evils and what that means, I feel like it's an abdication of responsibility to not make that call.
I mean, I certainly have been critical of people who, generally don't vote for the lesser of two evils. But I think, and certainly, in the run up to the 2016 election, I certainly that was my perspective. But again,
I don't know why he lies about this.
What the Biden administration was doing was so horrific that her inability.
Yes, of course he's using Sam to try and trash talk me by fucking lying.
I think
I literally have made
sometimes you have to take this at face value.
Videos about Jill Stein
I think there would be certainly definitely other things. You would not be assaulting the government.
Why does he lie about this?
Like Trump
it's
is,
such a basic,
but,
easy to fucking comprehend principle.
I think probably this is the first election in as long as I've been doing this, and I think it's been 5 elections now. I mean, I'm old.
Why does he lie about this?
Really,
I voted on stream.
Condemn someone from taking that
I never
position
told people to vote for Jill Stein. I told people not to vote for Jill Stein. I told people
not
to
just
vote
some
for
random
Trump.
person.
I
do, and I'll tell you why.
Be worse than Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris
but it was up to
wanted a
them
ceasefire.
to make
She stated
decision
that.
on their
Trump
own.
said, "Finish them." I mean, let's be honest.
Oh my
like
God.
for someone like
Biden
Hassan,
said, I want a ceasefire
I'm not voting for
too.
Biden. I'm not talking
No,
about
I
Biden.
understand, but we
Drama
found out
thing.
that Biden, in fact, did nothing to bring that about. So,
Well,
you
can talk about Biden. I'm talking about Kamala Harris. What she said.
I mean,
Well, she's the vice president. I mean, at the end of the day, she doesn't really do that much, right?
No. But I'm talking about the candidate. Biden, as a president, said he wanted a ceasefire. She as a candidate said, I want a ceasefire.
But do not, even if you're like, I don't know how much
he
I
is
trust
not
them.
knowledgeable enough
One's
to
like, I want
have
a
an
ceasefire,
adult
the other one is
conversation
like,
on this.
finish
I'm
them.
sorry. It's obvious.
Well, listen,
he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I think it
And he's
was,
lying on top of
certainly
that.
obvious to me that Trump was going to be worse. But I think, like, if you're trying to get the candidate
pee.
to
I'm doing a pee break.
show some indication of this, I can understand that. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I would disagree with it. But
yeah, I get your point
I'm
too.
not-
Like, ultimately, I understand why people wouldn't want to support them because of what they've seen, and like that, it feels like it feels like
it also shows a tremendous amount of just like electoral malfeasance on her part. I mean, they made an active choice. And I think, you could have put that Palestinian lawmaker from Georgia on stage. They made an active choice to signal to whomever they were signaling that they weren't going to do anything. Now, I happen to believe that she would have been better on this than Trump, but they were making an active choice to do that. I mean, it was really electoral malfeasance on her part, in my opinion. But I don't know what the point of litigating this is per se, but
well, we're talking about kind of my criticisms of Hassan and how this.
I don't.
Well, let me show you this.
I don't care.
Yeah,
about,
I know.
Honestly, I'm like
Let me show you this. This is
I'm
more.
Not, I don't. I honestly. Like,
Yeah, you don't care. I know.
I don't care. I don't.
And why should you? I don't blame you. We talked about anti-Semitism, and you think that I don't want to put words in your mouth, right? But you seem to have conveyed that, compared to the destruction and everything happening, the genocide, the loss of life in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, that obviously that's way more important. So let me show you an example of something. And again, I know you don't care about the drama. To me, this isn't drama. This is one of the biggest, most influential streamers spreading something that I think is really dangerous. And you can agree or disagree, but it's a short clip, but I'll show it to you. And you tell me what you think.
It's clip chimped. This will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of, regardless of your background, any kind of fucking Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi. And you shouldn't even let someone be the fucking local dog catcher as Felix was posting.
Yep.
If they've ever exhibited any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm so serious about this.
Now, by the way, he didn't misspeak. He doubled down on it yesterday. He said, no, I agree. That's what I think. Now, just to recap, he says, anyone
Look at
that's
him
had positive
shaking. What the
feelings at
fuck?
any point about the state of Israel is a neo-Nazi that's not fit to be a dog walker. Now, to me, that seems like extremely dangerous. dehumanizing language about what could arguably be 70% of the Jewish diaspora, and certainly probably people you know in your family.
I'll tell you, there's some hyperbole there, but
that's putting it mildly.
I don't want my fucking Zionist family members to be in office either.
And I'll tell you what I think is really...
Sorry, I got to correct you. He says Zionism, and then he says, if you had positive feelings about the state of Israel at any point in your life.
I got to tell you, if you look at what's happening right now, and you have positive feelings about Israel.
He said at any point in your life, Sam. Just to be clear, about what he said.
Don't try to fucking.
Would I have said at any point in his life, someone's life? But I just think this is such a petty, like the idea that we're going to police. Hold on, let me respond. You want me to respond this?
No,
like I say, I don't care about this. But if you're going to force me to respond to it. What Israel is doing right now is so far beyond the idea that someone says any time in your life or not or whatnot. He's talking about Zionism, and frankly, I think it's very difficult for me.
Maybe Sam needs more context to see how vitriolic Hasan is.
Understand how someone could have positive feelings at this time. Now you want to say in the past and what? Okay.
Yeah.
Like I say, I will grant you at any time in your life that is
That's not what I said.
Too broad a step. But wait, let me finish.
Yeah.
But see, you go in and you're making this about anti-Semitism by doing this hopscotch about
they're sending skulls to the man's house.
poll that people had positive feelings that Jewish people do, and then therefore he is anti-Semitic. And honestly, that type of conflation,
of your background,
I think, is so dangerous and so disingenuous. I mean, I don't want to get too passionate about this, but I will tell you something. I have had a guy who went to my bar mitzvah, my sister's bar mitzvah, my kid's bar mitzvah, sat at Passover with me 3 or 4 times, called my father and asked him if I'm anti-Semitic. Now, this is just one, that is just an example, an illustration of conflating when he's clearly talking about Zionism. Was it hyperbole to say any time in life, whatever? The fact of the matter is this conflation is dangerous for Jews.
Yes.
It is a fig leaf and a way of weaponizing anti-Semitism that has enabled Donald Trump to do the shit he's doing, that has enabled the slaughter of thousands upon thousands of children and women and men, for that matter. It is not keeping Israelis safe. And this type of conflation, Ethan, is what I find far more irresponsible, frankly, than the idea that he said positive any time.
He's right.
Look, you do a show
Sam,
4 hours a day. He does a show 5, or as far as I can tell, 15 hours a day. And to focus in on that one tiny clause.
This is not one tiny clip, Sam. You don't know. This is a totality of behavior.
But you.
And by the way, it's easy. And I appreciate that you can hand wave it away and say that it doesn't.
No, I'm not hand waving it away.
Well, you kind of are.
I'm saying this.
You're saying it doesn't. You're saying actually I'm wrong.
You know exactly what I mean there.
In fact, I'm saying this conflation is incredibly dangerous.
It
is disingenuous.
I think it's dangerous
right now,
to ignore what's being described as dehumanizing violent language for American Jews.
That
have nothing to do with the war.
That is a complete mischaracterization of it.
And that is what's
not
dangerous.
He's not fit to be a dog walker.
He never says the word Jews.
He says a neo.
Listen, how many members of Kufi have positive feelings towards Israel?
Let me see.
How many millions of members of Kufi, the Christian organization, have positive feelings for Jews? It is clearly not a function of their Judaism. It is not a function of their Judaism, and so it is not
describes most Jews.
Perhaps these people will not finally understand.
It describes most Christian evangelicals too.
It may do them too, but it also describes 73% of Jews.
So that is not anti-Semitism. That is about
I don't know. What do you
belief.
call it when somebody's discriminating against the vast majority of a racial or religious group, Sam?
I'm sorry. You want to look at evangelical Jews?
I don't care about evangelical
Jews.
people.
Okay, but I'm talking about the way you're constructing this.
I think
you can say the same thing about Christian evangelicals too. It is not anti-Semitism.
I wouldn't be able to have this conversation because Ethan would just be like, "You're a Jew hater. You're a Jew hater. You're a Jew hater."
In isolation, which is what we've done here.
Well, you're the one who gave it to me.
Yeah, well,
I don't even want to talk about it,
I disagree
but I'm
with you.
using your example, and in that instance, that is not anti-Semitism.
Well, I disagree.
Conflation. Okay, well, that's our disagreement.
Yeah.
But I think that conflation is incredibly dangerous.
Well, I disagree as well.
For Jews,
I think
it's dangerous for this society.
Why would he?
I think, frankly, I think it's dangerous what I perceive as hand waving what is happening here. I know you said you aren't doing
I'm
that.
not hand waving.
You're doing the opposite. You're endorsing
decades of thought about this.
So right, sure. But the point is, you're saying that this is not dangerous. How dare you care about this? I think it's dangerous
No, I'm not saying that at all.
I personally, I mean,
I'm
Jewish
saying
people
the
have a collective memory of trauma,
it as
Sam, and it starts a certain way. And it
He's
starts
talking
with
about the
people.
Holocaust now.
It starts
The
with
Sam Seder.
dehumanizing language, like saying you're
my
not
God,
fit
he's
to
talking about-
walk
he's
a dog.
evoking the
I mean, what are we
He's
doing
not
here?
talking
It's
about Jews.
irresponsible language.
He's not talking about
He's
Jews.
talking about 73% of Jewish people.
No, you said that.
No, that's a poll that's readily available.
No, you made that connection. He did not. Because we have millions upon millions of members of Kufi. We have millions upon millions in this country of evangelicals who also believe the same thing.
Does your dad
and
have?
You cannot say it's anti-Semitism.
Could you describe
You cannot say it's anti-Semitism if you're also including millions upon millions, far more Christians.
If he wants his
Jews.
dad to be appointed to a local office, and Sam would say no.
Your father, who you mentioned, said something to you that he's ever in his life had positive feelings about the state of Israel.
I've had positive feelings of Israel.
Well, does your dad have any positive feelings about it now?
I would assume so.
Not in terms of like I support them, but
I've
like
had
I think
positive
Israel,
feelings. I went to Israel on.
Okay, good. Then you're a neo-Nazi, not fit to walk a dog. How do you feel about that?
No, that's you saying that.
That's
that is
literally
not
what he said. I'll play it again.
No. Thank you. I think like this will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of, regardless of your background, any kind of fucking Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi. And you shouldn't even let someone be the fucking local dog catcher as Felix was posting if they've ever exhibited any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm so serious about this.
Another thing he's doing, by the way, and Hasan does this.
Listen,
he plays around with the term Zionist, right?
You can say that's a wrong thing to say, but he's not talking about Jews.
Yes.
He's talking about people who have exhibited these positive feelings, and that includes millions upon millions of Christians.
Yes.
More Christians.
Okay, well, listen, I don't
of your background.
He's not fit to walk dogs, either.
Yes,
I think it's
no
insane
local
language.
office
Listen,
positions.
you don't want to tell me that you have never engaged in hyperbole. You and I both are in this business, and we do that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I just think that
It's you can say
I just
an
think that,
inappropriate
like,
thing to say. It's an unfair thing to say.
I just think like
but
Arabs
it's
that
not
support Israel aren't
anti-Semitism.
fit to walk a dog.
It is not anti-Semitism.
Okay, well, we're
And
at
you
an
can say
impasse
that
on this one.
No, the dog walker
Yeah,
is
so, I mean-
a local.
But anyway, another
it's
thing
a
he
fucking
does is he says
colloquialism that
Zionist
Felix
tendencies,
Biederman,
and he's
also
someone that
Jewish,
plays around
used.
with Zionism. He calls me a Zionist, and again, I know we're arguing here about semantics of what Hasan said, but I don't think that you could accurately characterize me as that, as it's used colloquially. You don't know, right? But he's saying Zionist tendencies. What does that mean? What's a Zionist tendency?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to talk
you
to
can
him
ask
on
me about
Friday.
it. I
You can
can
ask
tell
him
you.
what a Zionist tendency is.
Zionism
I
is
suppose
fascism.
I
That's
would
it.
guess, and like I've looked at polls too, where people have various different understandings of
Why
what
is he trying to debate
Zionism
me
is.
on this?
But I
Ethan's
think it
bringing
is
Hasan up so much.
my
Ethan is
guess,
trying to fight Hasan through
and
Sam.
I don't know what
Absolutely
he
beta
was
move.
thinking specifically.
Watch
but
Ethan back
the
away from
notion of
our
an
supposed
ethno-state
debate on Friday
that
now because now
that
he didn't get what he
engages
wanted
and
out of
allows
Sam.
Whatever in the name of,
This was all
Zionism allows
preparation
this mass
to
slaughter.
fucking try and
I think
hit
is
me in the
horrific.
face.
Sure.
And he's
me
not
too.
able to. He's not able to extract. He's not able to extract what he wanted out of
the three of us
Sam.
agree on that regard.
Yeah, I think we're so. Another thing is like to take it even further. I mean, Hasan pretty much openly
Well, let's not
supports
talk
Hamas.
about Hasan. Let's talk about this.
Sure. I mean, what do you want to ask me?
Well, I mean, if you want to ask me about, I mean,
I think he's gonna back away now that he's not getting what he wanted.
I'm not here to explore.
I have a list of things that.
But if you want to talk about Hamas, I mean, I think look.
Well, how do you feel about Hamas?
I mean, I feel that Hamas, people can perceive it as a liberation organization. We call them terrorists in this country. We call the ANC terrorists.
What do you think about them, Sam?
Listen, I think there are parts, I would imagine, of Hamas that have done good for the people in Gaza, and I think they have done bad things. But I sort of feel, I guess, ultimately probably like Ehud Barak when he said that were I Palestinian and I was living in Gaza, that it would be likely that I would join Hamas. I mean, that's what Ehud Barak said on multiple occasions. And I think that is very...
That is the exact same opinion as I do.
An understanding of human nature.
Saying it from a perspective
that you're not supporting Israelis, by the way,
break
just to point out an inconsistency
there. Because he can't fucking hit him on this.
Well, you're not. You're like, I refuse to understand human nature and their reaction. It's just evil, and I don't know how to explain it.
I didn't use the word evil.
Right. I'm inferring because I asked you if you think they're evil, and you didn't really answer that.
His audience thinks
I don't know what Gazans felt on October 8th, but toward Hamas. But I can tell you that we have there is a long history of terrorist organizations or so-called terrorist organizations like the ANC or the IRA. Even the PLO,
now, Sam,
that ultimately become a political organization.
I think the comparison to Hamas to what happened in South Africa is insanely disingenuous. And I personally hate when people do that.
I mean, Mandela didn't think so.
Well, Mandela did think so. He explicitly stated that he avoided committing violence on the citizens because it would make reunification impossible.
Twice they asked
That's
Nelson
something
Mandela,
he said.
if you disavow violence, we will let you go free.
In the totality of their campaign,
you are wrong.
I think under 200 civilians died. And the people who did kill civilians were almost all held accountable for what they did. That's a difference.
Why is he lying about this?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that
a significant difference.
He stayed in prison. His
prison
sentence was
a significant difference. I mean, I imagine many of those people who committed atrocities on October 7th are dead now. And so
what does that have to do with anything?
Well, that's accountability.
Being killed? Okay. I mean, being held accountable by the party that they're presumably doing the violence on behalf. But
you're saying the entire ANC was held accountable?
No, it's saying Nelson Mandela's party, if someone killed a civilian, they would hold them accountable. They would charge them. They would disavow their actions.
That's not true.
The ANC did.
Yes.
Well, the IRA was bombing places in England and throughout Ireland. I mean, we have even the Irgun or the Stern Gang when they killed over 100
I would not compare Irgun to the IRA, by the way.
In 1948. I mean, the history is full of example of organizations that commit terrorist acts. Now, I will tell you,
people look at South Africa.
I do not condone the killing of civilians, which is why obviously I'm upset about what Israel is doing.
Sure. The part that I don't like about people say. I feel like people sweep for Hamas by saying, what do you expect,
MK,
right?
paramilitary wing of the
truth
ANC
is that people
bombing campaign that
use
killed 19 people,
South Africa as an
200.
example, but what South Africa shows is that you don't need to commit a violent war against civilians to liberate yourself.
They were violent!
Well, I mean, listen, we had for a year, we had the Great March of Return, where Sinwar himself was involved in that. There was Palestinians marching on a regular basis over the course of the year. I don't know how many it was, 50 or whatever. that were innocent people who went there, and
Nelson Mandela
snipers
was like,
are
as a leader,
shooting
he was
down
willing to use
unarmed
violence.
civilians. And so, time and time again, and over the course of the 20 years that I've been professionally,
That's the reason why he
covering
went to
this,
prison.
my attitude towards Israel's willingness to have peace has changed, and my understanding of it has changed. And I can only imagine how more intense that feeling is to be living in a place that is, functionally like, the Warsaw Ghetto, insofar as like you don't have access to resources, you have 50% unemployment, the apartheid that is taking place in terms of the West Bank. I mean,
I agree with those characterizations, by the way, Sam. Just to say,
but I can't imagine that my response wouldn't be to pick up a weapon.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
It's not really working out.
Well, because none of it's working out, is it? I mean,
not much at all. Not really much at all.
What is called the greatest attack on Israelis in 75 years. The notion of Zionism and the way that Israel is organized as a society is not protecting Jews.
Well,
it's not protecting Israelis. It's not protecting Jews worldwide. It is, there may have been a time where Zionism had and there were certainly proponents of Zionism in the early 20th century, in the late, perhaps late 19th century, where there was a notion of a multi-ethnic democracy that fell by the wayside. Folks like Hannah Arendt and Einstein, left the Zionist Congress, and what it has evolved into is, I think, a nightmare for everyone involved. And so, I don't know how I would react in that type of immiseration, frankly.
Well, can I ask you?
But again, Ehud Barak said that he would pick up a weapon were he one of them. And
that's fine.
He's far closer to
Sam is a secret weapon.
the conflict than I am.
I'm not saying I don't understand why people pick up weapons, right? So let me ask you this: what do you think about October 7th attack?
What do I think about it?
Yeah,
I mean, it was horrific.
Mm-hmm. And this was like a military action by Hamas to what end?
I mean, I suspect. I mean, I don't know what the strategy was. I mean, they attacked 2 military bases. I don't know if they were aware.
He's gonna hit the rape stuff now, probably.
That the dance.
The Nova rave.
Yeah, I don't know if they knew that rave was happening. I suspect it was to derail the Abraham Accords, which were going to leave the Palestinians out of the equation, where an authoritarian
you leave out that they attacked kibbutzim, by the way.
No, yes, of course they did. But I'm saying that they. I don't know what the strategy was on their part.
So what do you think? Would you expect the response of Israel would be to that?
I had no doubt on that day that Israel was going to respond.
Go insane, yeah, right. It was going to be horrific. We all knew.
Yes, but I think I think the lack of proportionality was just beyond. Frankly, and I was aware that this was going to be a horror show, but I don't think I had the level of awareness of what they would do to go in and literally level it, destroy, what is it, 80-90% of the structures in Palestine, bomb hospitals
as well.
That they would use.
Well, Hamas did know that because that's why they attacked.
Food as a weapon.
I'm more interested in the justification for what they're doing.
Probably took hostages with the idea that they would be able to negotiate.
I understand why they took hostages. I don't understand why they took children and elderly.
I believe that they probably. I mean, this is all conjecture on my part. That they would be able to trade them as a way to inhibit Israel's doing what they're doing. And I don't know if they could have even imagined that. I'm not going I'm not going to endorse Hamas's strategy here.
Well, I'm just trying to flesh it out here because
either.
this is what I'm getting to is Hamas. I think they knew that this was the reaction that would happen. You know?
I can't imagine that they
It's an act of desperation
assumed that this
born
was,
out of
there would be
Israel's
this
endless
level
cruelty.
of destruction.
I mean, that's why they hate Israel. I don't think they underestimate how violent the IDF can be. You know what I mean? That's why they attacked.
I certainly underestimated that they would go this far. Use
I didn't think they'd go this far, but
bomb hospitals.
Okay, so why the fuck are you defending Israel and the Zionist project in any capacity, Ethan?
Have rules of engagement
Hamas
like this.
thought that Israel would have a semblance of humanity for its own hostages. They were wrong. How was that anybody else's fault other than Israel?
Criticism for their strategy here. If
that's
what
an
you're
understatement.
Ethan is blaming the genocide of Palestinians on Hamas once again.
Well, I mean, they're a terrorist organization
way to try and defend Israel.
Antagonized like the IDF to come mass slaughter their civilians.
I think that they overestimated whether Israel cared about the hostages, without a doubt. I mean, there's.
I'm really disappointed.
I don't know that there would be anybody who would make a case that this
oh my
is
God,
was
his
their
entire
plan
community is like full-blown Zionist.
To have Israel respond in this way, that's absurd.
Well, and the same is true of I guess Israelis feel the same way. Like it was totally unprecedented.
No shot. They're literally fucking going. They're telling Sam.
Maybe they didn't think that their mission would be as successful as it was
on
the other hand.
I have no doubt that they.
Who are you?
They did not think that they would that they would have been able to overrun that. I mean, I think we were told that the technology
so much worse than I thought it was going to be.
Fence, et cetera, was perfect and something we should emulate in this country. I mean, Trump was all talking about that. So I have no doubt that Hamas overestimated
overestimated the IDF. Yeah, I got you.
What they would be able to,
oh my God, is bad.
What kind of destruction they would wreak,
bad, bro.
And they underestimated the violence that Israel would perpetrate on Gaza.
This
I don't know that anyone could have imagined that Israel would
someone can be to explain the situation. And these guys are just going crazy. They're treating him like they treat me.
Commiseration and bombing churches and bombing hospitals and blowing up universities and destroying
Sam is hard
the
to listen
infrastructure.
to.
I mean, it's almost beyond belief.
So one thing that when I was talking to Hasan, and I'm just going to talk about his point. This is about him personally. When I asked him, because this is obviously the $1 million question, right? By the way, just there's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza.
You think that's a good
There's
point?
not one public bomb shelter in Gaza?
Oh no, he's doing hospital points. Oh,
okay.
Sam's gonna cook him.
I just think that's interesting. It's pretty fucked up.
What would a 3,000-pound bomb do to a bomb shelter?
Do I think it's fucked up?
Do you think Israel would stop themselves from blowing up a bomb shelter?
I'm not sure I understand the point.
Well, I mean,
do you think anything would be standing anymore?
Well, bomb shelters are underground. I mean, they would definitely be a lot safer.
Dude,
they have 2,000. They have bunker busters. They've used bunker busters on fucking refugee camps. They've used bunker busters on hospitals. Why the fuck would they stop themselves from using it on a fucking bomb shelter?
The first one that they went into, they built it when they were occupying Gaza.
Are you right? That's true of that one. But I mean, they have a vast tunnel network, obviously, as everybody knows. But I don't care. I don't want to get into the weeds on this. The $1 million question is what can we do? Now it's obviously insanely difficult to say.
I think we can stop aid immediately. I mean, obviously it's not going to happen under Trump.
I'm in favor of that. By the way,
don't move on. Don't move on. Oh my God.
Okay. I mean, good.
I mean, I think
we should call for all aid to be ceased. And I think we should stop protecting them in the
What
UN.
should have Israel done on October 8th, I guess? Like, what would have been an appropriate response for their government?
Not kill Israeli citizens within the Gaza envelope. in a hope that Hamas could not hold them kidnapped.
On October 8th? I mean, I think that there is...
Concede to the positions of Hamas.
They're hitting strategic sites to attempt to take out leadership. They should have... But let's talk,
the leadership was underground.
Yeah, to look at that, that moment
Not
in
do a
history,
genocide,
like
I
maybe
think.
it was.
I disagree because they had to do something.
Listen, maybe in that moment,
Why are there
they had to go in and bomb or whatever they do. I think that any action that they would have taken at that point, frankly, was a function of literally decades of oppressing people and attempting to bring this to an eventuality.
Right.
I mean, this was.
I can't believe.
And so what should they have
I
done?
can't believe his audience
Ages ago.
legitimately and Ethan
Well,
thought
I mean,
that
avoiding-
like Sam
yeah.
would agree with.
Okay, I think
them
what they
and
should have
not
done
me. It
is
is so
begun
shocking.
empowering
Anyone who's knowledgeable on this
Palestinians
issue
in
that
the
isn't
West
fucking
Bank. They should have
brain
done
broken
the
This is my
same.
favorite
Zionism
answer,
is
Sam.
100% going
saying
to
that
have these
this
exact
is what
same
Hasan told
opinions.
me.
What
They
the
should
fuck?
disband their government and lift the borders in response to the worst terrorist attack that's ever happened.
I think honestly, when you see that your policies have failed, but I don't think this
You
was their
actually don't believe
agenda.
that that's a real thing, though. I'm interested in having like a real conversation. You can't like live in a fairy tale land where, in response to the worst military or terrorist attack of all time, Israel, who's already, as you state, like genocidal and racist and all these terrible things, is going to lift their borders and disband their
Well,
government.
wait a second. You're asking me what they should have done, and that's different.
No, in a
from
realistic
what I
way, not in
expect
a
them to
fairy
do.
tale, Sam.
Well, listen, there is no realistic thing. Their agenda has been, it has been quite clear. Their agenda has been, since Ariel Sharon walked on the Temple Mount and tried to scuttle peace talks, the agenda since the assassination of Rabin by arch Zionists in Israel, the agenda has been to bring about this moment. There is no doubt about it. The annihilation of the Palestinian people has been an agenda in Israel for far too long. So from the perspective, it's anything I say is fantastical relative to what they would actually do. Anything.
There's nothing they could have done
anything.
that because of the situation, everything.
No,
anything
I'm
they would have
saying
done
that
would have
this
been.
was
Poor Israel, man.
There was no plan that on this
I
day
feel
they were
so
going
bad.
to do this.
I feel so
But
bad
if
for
you go
Israel
back
for
10 or 15
76 years of
ago
apartheid. They
and
just had
look
no other
into
option but to do
Bibi Netanyahu's
genocide.
brain,
That is the
idea
logical
that this is
conclusion of
ultimately
Ethan's
going
argument,
to
by the way.
happen
That is how
was
crazy this
definitely
is.
the agenda.
What, in terms of like
Find a
attacking
way-
Gaza or inciting
Find
an
a
attack?
way. I would imagine both, frankly. But to find a way
kind of-
to eliminate the Palestinians, this has been the agenda of at one time
Keep
what I
collecting
think
those
was
W's,
a
Ethan. Wait, oh
smaller
my
segment
God.
of the Israeli body politic, and I think has increasingly become an even larger portion of the Israeli politic. So, I mean, anything I say in terms of should is fantastical. Anything.
So yeah, okay. I mean, so this is like I understand where you're coming from, right? Like
There was an opportunity for a ceasefire that was called in November, in December. They could have held a ceasefire at any point, and the amount of killing would have been far less. They could have done that. They could have ended it after a week.
I mean, Hamas could have ended the war anytime too.
How could have Hamas ended the
By
war?
by releasing the hostages?
Listen, Israel has said time and time again that release of the
crazy.
hostages is not going to end their assault on Gaza. They have said this over
I don't believe
and
that's-
over and over.
I haven't
believe
seen those
that?
statements.
You don't
I've seen the
believe
opposite.
facts?
I believe
because
that
you're
if
delusional.
Really, you really haven't seen those
Well,
statements?
No, I haven't. I'll review
They
them.
just
I mean,
released
it
the
depends
statement
when
last week. They
it
said
depends
we
when they
won't.
were made
Why
too,
are
right?
there
Like, is
fucking
it what's
hostage
in
family
response
protests
to
in
it?
Israel, Ethan? It's because the Netanyahu government doesn't want to release the hostages because they want to keep using the hostages as a reason to keep bombing Gaza because they want to ethnically cleanse the Gaza population. They want to ethnically cleanse the fucking Gaza Strip.
Not
You are so stupid.
coming into Gaza.
Why are you so
there's
stupid?
just-
You don't understand
to
anything.
defend
That's not true.
Israel's
Oh my
actions
God.
That didn't happen
as
either.
being inevitable.
Oh my God.
Like, when do you think they should have ended it? When do you think they should have ended it?
So who have ended what?
You've asked me the question, what should have Israel done? You
Yeah.
tell me what they should have done. Do you think what they've done is right?
Well, I've clearly stated no, Sam.
Okay, so tell me what they should have done.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, hindsight is
He's
a
messaging him right
beautiful
now, by the
thing.
way.
But
Oh, dude.
in my opinion, like you said, I think some more specific strikes. I think more moving slowly because, as you kind of
just a slower
pointed out,
genocide.
but didn't really acknowledge.
When
is
do you
that
think they should have
Do
ended?
you want me to answer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the leadership is obviously underground. So it's going to be a long mission of trying to get them. It's going to be a difficult mission. But I think militarily, they probably have some obligation to their citizenry, at the very least, to like take out but we're ignoring the fact that missiles are being shot into Israel nonstop. And I know you're going to say, Iron Dome stops most of them, which is true. But at the same time, I mean, a country needs to respond to that. They can't just allow missiles to be shot in.
Tell me the non-fantastical version of what they should have done. Should have been 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How many Hamas leaders, how many members of Hamas should they have killed before they leave? Because we know that Blinken said on his way out that virtually every Hamas member of Hamas that they've killed has probably been replaced by someone who's lost a family member or an entire family or whatnot. So you tell me, Ethan, if you're the one with the sensical perspective on this, and mine is fantastical, what should they have done that would have been appropriate in your mind?
Yeah. So besides like special operations and stuff, I think it would have been a good idea I think there's a space where they could like try to find peace partners in Gaza before destroying the whole thing. Like, obviously they approached it completely wrong, right? But there are ways, I think, that could have happened that are realistic, like trying to forge some kind of
the principal negotiator who had never actually held a fucking weapon. They killed him at Tehran. This is ridiculous.
They were marching in the Great March of Return week after week after week.
Sam, was there Hamas activity at the Great March?
Sinwar was marching. Sinwar was marching with them.
Were people attacking the border wall?
During the Great March of Return, the first dozens of these things before the snipers, no, they weren't. So there were the people for peace.
Hamas activity at the Great
There
March
was
of Return.
Hamas activity. They were attacking the fence. They were like trying to cross the border.
They were
but not
attacking
militants. Militants were trying to cross the border.
That's not true.
You're telling me that in the first dozen of these marches, there were people attacking the fence?
Defending
Correct.
Sniping like paramedics at the Great March of Return, for the record. That's what he is.
Yeah.
De facto
But I mean,
defending.
again,
Sniper rifles.
I think that there's a way for Israel to try. I think they can obviously pursue peace. The way
Please
that they're
don't
doing
go
it is
there.
impossible, right? Like, it's fucked up. It's insane. It's genocidal. It's horrific.
They're not pursuing peace.
I'm not saying.
They're not
I'm saying the
pursuing peace.
opposite,
I don't
Sam.
think Israel is
Well, you
pursuing
asked me
peace.
what should they have done. I mean, obviously
Yes.
they're not pursuing peace. I agree with you. Like, quite the opposite. That's not what they're doing. But I'm saying there could have been a path, although it's not. I think, unfortunately, I think their response was inevitable based on everything that happened.
You think it was inevitable that they would kill these many people and they would use food supplies as a weapon, that they would have leveled hospitals and universities and 80-90% of the homes? I mean, how
I don't know to what extent, but a huge response was definitely inevitable. I'm not justifying it, Sam. You asked me a question. I'm answering it. You're putting this on me like I'm saying.
No. I'm just saying inevitability. I wonder
right here.
what you must think of an Israeli body politic
all the history and
where
context
this
of
level
Ethan's
of
points.
atrocity is inevitable.
Well, you described your and Hamas's understanding of the IDF. I wouldn't say that.
Sam is a
I can't say to what
self-hating Jew?
extent,
What the
but you
fuck?
agree that a huge response was inevitable.
I listen. I believe a response that was inevitable by Israel, and that is because I have a much more
There's
theoretically
some
jaded
crazy takes
view
in this chat.
of that country and their agenda, I think, than you. But to expect that what they've done is inevitable.
To
you
what?
can't
Well, Sam,
think-
I'm saying.
I just wonder, what it is that you think is in that body politic. Listen, I don't think it's inevitable, just to use an example in this country. I don't think that it's inevitable that we are going to be deporting and disappearing, immigrants in this country. I think it's possible, but my perspective on America is still
There's
too
crazy takes in
optimistic
here
to
too.
think that's inevitable.
Yeah, of course there's
I can't
crazy
even
takes in here.
imagine
Like you, chum
what
guzzler.
I
You came in
would
here.
think would be
It's not
inevitable.
locked.
And I think, like,
all you need to do is
listen,
follow for 10
our
minutes.
invasion
His
of
chat is
Iraq
all
and the
fucking paid members and
complete lack of
subscribers.
caring and
Don't you think that there's a major difference there?
the only
I don't
thing that would even
safeguard
mitigate that
myself
is,
from the
like,
opinions
there
of
was-
people like
there
you,
were no
cum
images
guzzler
coming out
22.
of Iraq, or
Okay.
very few. And,
Yeah, no
and
shit.
certainly I was exposing them more than the American population writ large.
Ethan's chat is members only.
To perceive what we did in Iraq as inevitable.
It's a different situation. That's completely, I mean, that was completely unpredictable. But we kind of touched on it. Where
No,
Hamas, and again, to what end this even matters is it doesn't ultimately. But you know, Hamas knew that they were going to bomb the fuck out of Gaza.
Listen, I would imagine Hamas thought there was going to be a response, but they wouldn't have taken hostages if they thought that they couldn't use those hostages.
Of course,
as a way
they thought they could. I don't deny that. Yeah.
Of deterring Israel from entering, and that was a miscalculation on their part. They presumed that Israel was more interested in those hostages, I think, than they had assumed.
Well, and that's part of what a lot of the civil unrest in Israel is about, is that a lot of people do care about the hostages and think that the government needs to stop the war and focus on getting the hostages back and not killing innocent civilians. So that
I wonder
oh
about
my
that
God,
last
Sam
part.
Seder, what a fucking nightmare with Ethan saying
which
it.
part?
The part about the killing of innocent civilians. I mean, you know, I think that
I said that's what they're doing.
No. I'm saying I wonder if the Israeli body politic.
Oh, you think the Israelis want civilians to die?
I think the Israelis. I mean, obviously not all Israelis.
There's definitely
but
a lot
I think
of,
that
there are definitely a lot of Israelis that do want the
enough
Israeli civilians to die, and certainly the Gazan civilians to
of
die as
Israelis
well.
to maintain this government.
Yes.
Believe
That's what the polls
that,
say. Ethan loves his polls when he's
Palestinians in
talking about
Gaza,
Zionism.
that their lives have no value, that they are all future enemies, that they that they all represent the
Really,
threat to
Sam?
Israel. And I think
Oh,
that's
yes, Sam, speak for everyone.
I mean, I think that's
They're
think
so
that's
mad at Sam Seder. They literally
a twisted perspective.
Before this conversation took place, I need you to understand their subreddit was talking
just
about
so you
how
know,
Ethan should
there were
Sam
massive
Seder me because they thought that
in
Ethan
Israel,
and Sam Seder would be in
tens of
agreement with
thousands
one
of
another.
people in a
And now
country
they're
that's
fucking calling him
relatively
a
small.
self-hating Jew
So
and
I
shit.
think characterizing like the majority of
audacity.
the public as wanting to kill civilians is a little sick, personally. But you know,
I feel
I
Ethan
guess
is
you,
far
you,
less
you
extremist
can say
than
whatever
I mean,
you
I'm
want.
basing
I
this
mean, I know
on
you're gonna.
conversations
because
with
you feel that way because
you
he
know,
was trying to present himself in this conversation as someone who is actually pro-Palestinian
that
in an
there
effort to
does
use
not
that
seem to be
agreement with Sam
in
against
Israel
me on Friday. And even then, it
a-
unfolded pretty quickly
a
when he got a little bit
majority
of
at the very
pushback,
least,
not realizing that Sam has
of
very
people
Sam has
who
opinions almost
are,
identical to mine on this issue because that's what
concerned
every fucking
about
well-read person
the
on this matter would
fate
think
of
if
the
they have a fucking
Palestinians in
humanity.
Gaza. Certainly, they want hostages, and again, not all Israelis. But you know, look, I can make analogous assessments of the United States at various times about things that reflect poorly on our national body politic as well. But you know, the proof is in the pudding.
Can I tell you something? 300,000 protesters in Tel Aviv, 200,000 in the rest of the country. That's 500,000 people out in the street protesting the government of a country that has maybe 6 million or 5 million in the.
Are you talking about the protests about the judiciary?
I'm talking about the.
That's what he's talking about. Those weren't
to release the
hostages.
hostages.
No, the hostage
Okay,
protests
to
weren't
release
that
the
big.
hostages.
Yeah.
But even, I don't think the hostage protests were that big, but it doesn't
Well,
matter.
it's a
It was pretty
ceasefire.
large.
Ceasefire,
But
Sam.
those
That's what
people
that means.
literally still turned
were-
around
they were-
and
Half a
according to the
million.
polls said they want the
were
violence to continue in Gaza. They just
calling
want to
for a
stop it for
ceasefire,
now.
Or they were calling for a release of the hostages.
Well, what's the point of telling Hamas to release the hostages? Yeah, of course it's a ceasefire, Sam.
Well, but Israel has, and I know I'll look this up.
Deal with this.
I don't have much
500,000
time.
Israel.
Wait. Let's look this up and see
Yeah.
how many times
talking about the pro-rape
Israeli
riots.
government has said return of the hostages will not end.
Sam, I'm responding to you saying the majority of Israelis want civilians to die. 500,000 people came to the street for a ceasefire of a country of 5 million, Sam. That's 10%.
Israel just broke the latest ceasefire. Okay, where is the political response from the Israeli people? I mean, the idea
is this Israelis
that
or Israeli
Gazans
Jews?
can be held responsible for an election that happened 18 years ago.
Sam, you said the majority of Israelis want civilians to die.
I think the majority of Israelis do not have a problem with what's going on in Gaza. That is my opinion.
I think that unfortunately might be true to the extent that they've gotten they've gotten much more radical. Unfortunately, tragically, everybody's been a lot more radicalized since October 7th. And that's tragic. I agree. I think people in Israel are jaded and they're cynical and they don't care, like you said, and I think it's tragic.
Yes. Well, that's what my contention was. I mean, I'm looking at something from May.
Ethan?
I wouldn't say most of them want to kill civilians, though.
Well, I think that they don't.
And I wouldn't say that there isn't a sizable portion of of Israeli citizenry that want a ceasefire. When 500,000 people, Sam,
dude, Ethan should talk to an Israeli anti-Zionist. It will probably melt him. Okay. Ethan should talk to
research,
like a Meservolt guy or Dr. Ofer Kasef. He will literally melt on the spot.
34%.
He should ask an Israeli anti-Zionist, an Israeli Jew who's an anti-Zionist, what their take is on Israeli society, because they say some fucking way worse shit about their own country.
But that's all the most
it's horrible.
Or maybe he should talk to a therapist. Honestly, I don't know why he's doing all this.
That the
because
sentiment there
40% last year said that Israelis should govern the Gaza Strip.
I know that people.
I don't know what's left now.
Yeah, I agree. It's tragic what's happened, because I agree with you that they've become jaded and they've become very comfortable with the idea of violence happening there in general, right? And I think it sucks. I think it sucks is an understatement. I think it's tragic, and like I don't know what. Truthfully, the situation is so fucked up that
yeah, it's just really fucked up.
It just feels hopeless sometimes, but.
It certainly does. But in the meantime, in this country, and we may not have the opportunity for a while, but we should cease all aid to Israel. We should stop protecting them in the UN. We should stop trying to pressure the ICJ and the ICC, and that's
well, incidentally, I agree with all those things too. I think that's the most we can do as a country to try to stop the war.
You disagree
and
with
it's
me
something
on,
that we should be doing.
I mean, there are some significant disagreements, even that you brought up.
I think Kamala Harris would have been a lot more likely to do something on that front. Certain.
We won't know.
We can't know, and that's the great thing.
Well, listen, I appreciate the time. I gotta go because I'm supposed to have dinner for my child. But,
well, I'll say this: this was way more combative than I expected. Ultimately, though, I don't think that we. What do we disagree on? I mean, I don't know. I don't even know. Maybe I see too much good in the Israeli population. I mean, I don't know what's the ultimately the disagreements
here. He's trying to farm it. See?
Well, I mean, look, I'm not. It's largely, in my mind, impossible to really fully assess. I mean, yes, there was a protest last year, 500,000 people who wanted the hostages back.
And I thought you would agree on everything.
Well, they wanted the hostages back. I don't know.
It's not a magic wand. It's a ceasefire.
Yeah, and they got a ceasefire, and then the Israeli government broke it, and they.
Well, so hold on. Our disagreements is that I'm too optimistic about the Israeli citizenry.
No.
I'm not here to adjudicate what.
I'm just trying to summarize our conversation. That's all.
No, well, he's just trying to get a clip.
You summarize for you. I'll summarize for me. I think that, it is what it is, and I think I don't remember this conversation, we can put into AI and have it summarize it. But I'll
do that for you, and I'll let you know what it says.
All right.
We'll leave it to the robots.
Okay.
Sam, I do appreciate you calling in. I do value your input on all this, and I appreciate the conversation. I think it's good to have conversations like this, like open and honest, even if they're combative. And I think ultimately on the larger points we agree, but we managed to find things to fight about anyway, and that's what two Jews do, isn't it, Sam?
That happens. That's my understanding. Appreciate it. All right, take it easy, man.
Have a great time with your children at dinner there. Enjoy.
Ooh.
Thanks, I will.
I mean, I'll have the convo now if he wants to. By the way, I'll talk to Ethan right now if he wants to. Oh, he said.
But okay.
He said that was way different than what I thought it was going to be.
I enjoyed that as a watcher.
Was I owned?
I don't think you were owned. I don't think anybody was owned. I think it was two people that are highly opinionated hashing it out. And I think I personally like when people do that.
Yeah.
I don't get turned off by the combative.
Thank God we're having this
Maybe it's
open, free discourse.
That's the half Jewish part of me.
But the truthfully is like, again, on the larger points, we agree. That's why I take cross with this issue of being like, he's a genocide supporter, he's a fucking baby killer, and all this insane. He goes, Sam, you never heard of hyperbole? Yeah, I've heard of hyperbole. It's fuck. You're
the king of hyperbole.
Yeah. So I mean, like, is my downfall that I have too much faith or I have too much optimism in the Israeli
He has too much
citizenry?
optimism for Israel. That's his downfall. It's because he's too kind, dude.
Differing the most.
That was his downfall. He's too hopeful for a better tomorrow.
And I mean, Sam is older, and he's in his 50s or something, and so maybe he's just more jaded.
Dan,
yeah, he
stop.
Is more jaded.
Dan, have some
There's
fucking decency,
and
Dan.
so, right?
Listen, dude, he needs you more than you need him. Just be honest.
Jewish person,
he needs you more than you need him. You can be honest. Please be honest for the sake of Ethan. If you want to actually save your friend and your boss, be honest in this moment instead of fucking constantly
when trying to
feeding into his narcissism.
To avoid
oh my
criticizing
God.
Hassan, which is fine. I understand he doesn't want to get into that game, right?
This makes me so sad because Dan was a fucking massive Hasanabi head. Like I thought he was like a radical guy. I thought
obviously I greatly disagree with him, and I think it's kind of.
Someone needs to someone that Ethan trusts.
It's funny how he talks about how
real
dangerous
conversation
it is
with
for you
him.
to call out anti-Semitism or how ridiculous it is for me to weaponize it like that. It's like when at the same time,
it's a weird thing because you don't really want to I understand the impulse to just want to have a conversation with Sam and keep it with the here and now of your beliefs and everything, but. The degree to which the harassment that you and Hila have experienced over the last couple of years, it is part of the story, and
yeah, it's true.
I don't know, it's tricky because I get the impulse to not want to get into it, but that is a component of all of this.
And unfortunately, whatever Sam's been peppered with before the debate, I've seen is his co-host telling him that I'm obsessed with Hassan, that I'm having a mental
you really
health
showed that
break,
you're not
that
obsessed
I'm
by
a
fucking
genocidal maniac,
showing
all this kind
clip
of
chimps of me to him to be
without
like,
having
you
any of
should
the
disagree with
backstory, that's
it,
the flavor
putting
he's
words in
coming
my
with.
mouth.
But ultimately, I find I don't want to speak ill of Sam, right? I appreciate him coming and having an honest conversation with me. I was also disappointed by his response to that specific line of questioning, Zach. I share that.
Ethan is focusing too much on
and
trying to win the debate instead of having a rational conversation with another human being.
He was hand-waving away anti-Semitism as it doesn't matter that people are discriminating against Jewish people in America because of what's happening in Gaza.
The fandom is starting to see it.
First of all,
and I'm
two
glad
different issues, kind of.
whatever's happening in Gaza is one thing, and whatever rise in anti-Semitism we're seeing in America is a whole different fucking thing.
Yeah,
with
it's
own set of
connected to one
problems.
another,
And believe it
though.
or not,
It's connected to
they're
one
both
another because of that dangerous
the same
conflation
extent?
that Sam Seder
Obviously
tried to
not,
explain
right?
to you, Ethan.
Obviously,
the
one has
dangerous
an
conflation
immediate,
between Judaism,
horrible
Jews,
effect
and Zionism.
on
That is precisely
Gaza
the reason why
right now.
anti-Semitism is
And
skyrocketing
the
this
threat of
fucking country,
anti-Semitism
as it always
is
does
an
whenever Israel does
amorphous,
sieges.
nebulous
That is
thing
why
that's, like,
attacking people
hard
like
to measure
myself,
and hard
who
to
actually
say, and
cut that dangerous
Jews, a
conflation
whole life in
and
America,
never even
people
give an
called
inch to
people
that dangerous conflation, should not be your enemy.
Judaism
It
is
should be
this
people that actually
capacity,
consistently
50
say Zionism and Judaism are actually directly associated with one another. It is people like yourself, Ethan, that participate in this dangerous conflation, that feed into the anti-Semitic tendencies of people.
Anti-Semitism, what isn't, and when you're
There's
when
never
you're
been a
allies
moment
with
where
people
I've
that might
considered
be in our
anti-Semitism
spinning,
to be even
spreading
remotely
dangerous
permissible.
ideas like
I have
Hasan
fought
is.
against
I think
anti-Semitism my
Sam,
whole
who grew
fucking
up in
career. I've been
I
doxxed,
think he
swatted, and
just
attacked and harassed by the same
sees
fucking
too much good
neo-Nazis
in
that you
Hasan,
seemingly
and I
find
think-
yourself comfortably aligned with now, Ethan. What the fuck? What the fuck are you saying? Little old Israel over here. Oh no.
I didn't see it that way, but I'm not Jewish, so I found it interesting that you guys are having this conversation to give both perspectives. One thing I kind of wish is that you guys both could have defined
See,
what
these are the
Zionism
freaks.
is.
Those are the
like, what
fucking
you-
freaks.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's
These
a
are
big,
the fucking rabid freaks that come in
point
here and
in all
say
this.
some
I agree, and it's
fucked
such a
up
stupid
shit.
word. Because it has such a broad
And they
meaning.
get banned.
And like when,
Not only do
when
they get
Hassan
banned
says
instantly,
Zionist
but they get
tendencies,
banned off the
that's
fucking
why I think it's
platform for
important to
doing
ask
fuck shit
Sam,
like this.
who I think is
This
avoiding
not
the
an
question,
opinion
frankly,
that
because he knows that
this
it
is not
looks
an
bad. He
opinion that
doesn't want to
anyone in
answer.
this community
So
would
he
ever
responds by
fucking
saying,
abide
like,
by, even for
oh,
an
you
inch,
think this
even for a
matters? Let's
second.
not talk about the specifics of what Zionist tendency is.
Scumbags.
Because clearly Hassan's not anti-Semitic. Obviously, he doesn't have the
You've called me a
context. And by the
vile
way,
anti-Semite for a year.
I'm still willing to give Hasan the benefit of the doubt that he's not anti-Semitic, right?
What are you talking
But
about?
Once again, as I've stated,
You are?
Yeah, I'm willing to.
Even
I'm
Dan is
willing
laughing
to,
because
but at
he's
this-
called me a
at
vile,
what I've said
rabid
previously
anti-Semite
is
for a
that,
year now. So gracious.
He's
You know
very
I'm not an
comfortable
anti-Semite.
fostering a community that is blatantly hateful and anti-Semitic. He's comfortable, expressing these ideas irresponsibly the way he communicates, which is what that clip displays, I think.
Oh my
So while I don't
God.
think he's
I'm
anti-Semitic, I think he's responsible
You're
for
irresponsible.
perpetuating a lot of it.
You're irresponsible with the ways in which you have defended Israel's actions by presenting it as like Hamas instigating this genocide. That is not only irresponsible, that is morally repugnant.
That would impugn Hasan. Because frankly,
We know what he
there's
means
really
with
nothing
Zionist tendency.
positive
What
to
do you
say
mean?
about what he did.
Zionism
and
is
so Sam
fascism.
took the I guess
Any
if you
tendency
want to talk
towards
about
Zionism
debate, and
is
Sam's a great
exactly the
debater,
same as a
right?
tendency towards fascism. That is what I believe.
Everybody knows that. He's a great conversationalist. He doesn't really get the best of. Nobody really gets the best of him in conversation.
Why is Ethan in
I mean, the
Breaking
only
Bad
way
right now?
he
He'd
could
just
really
rather
take that
stay
on was to be
silent?
like, it doesn't matter, in the totality of things. So that's the road he took, and
Hassan
I
is
was
fuming so
disappointed
hard
by
right
that
now.
as well.
Yeah, of course I'm fuming. I'm fuming
But
because
at the end of
my
the day,
fucking former podcast
I knew
co-host
it
is
was
slandered
unlikely
me
that
for
he
a
was gonna
goddamn
say
year,
bad
trying to get me
thing about Hassan.
deplatformed.
I was
Got my friends
specifically trying
deplatformed.
not to
Got
even go
pro-Palestinian
there.
voices
In fact, when I showed him
deplatformed
that
at a
first
time
video of
when
me
the
talking about
American
my-
fascist government is literally actively trying to revoke the First Amendment rights of all Americans inevitably by using Israel as a talking point, by using Israel as a way to enter the conversation, by using Israel to enter the precedent into the Constitution to completely erode people's First Amendment rights. This will not just harm people like myself. It will harm you as well in the end. This is my argument.
So here's what I'll say about Israel.
Now
okay?
he's just like talking about how now he's just going to rewatch like how pro-Palestine he is to this audience that's watching. Of course I'm going to fucking fume. The reason why I'm fuming is because he is doing Hasbara. The reason why I'm fuming is because even in his most he tried to use this as an opportunity, thinking that he was going to actually agree with Sam Seder, that Sam Seder was going to be like, oh, wow, it seems like you're super pro-Palestine. Why are people calling you anti-Palestine? It seems like you might be getting attacked by anti-Semites. That's what he thought was going to happen. So he could use that clip on fucking Friday. That was his big smoking gun. Okay? I assumed that was his big smoking gun. Or maybe he was going to try to bring Dan Saltman on or Destiny on in the hopes that I get banned, which I will, by the way. If Dan Saltman or Destiny appears on Friday when we have this conversation, if Ethan is still willing and able to do it, I will get banned. He knows that, which is precisely the reason why I assume he will try to bring them forward, just as I called this initially, just as I called what was going to take place in this conversation initially. I'm telling you right now, if he tries to, oh my God, Sam Seder me, what a fucking nightmare, with like a person that has been banned, I won't be able to have this conversation with him. I will have to exit out of this conversation because Twitch will absolutely ban me. I know for a fucking fact. Okay? So, no, I already have. I've already talked to my Twitch rep. I did. Shut the fuck up. I did already. I know. They said, no, you will get banned. Do you understand? So, for that reason, if he tries some fuck shit like that, I assume this was a two-parter, okay? This was a two-parter. I suspect that he was initially going to try to get any clip that shows Sam Seder agreeing with him to be like, see, your ordained designated Jew agrees with me, or something along those lines, and then be like, why do you call me pro-Israel? Okay, that's what he thought he was going to be able to get. It didn't happen. So now I assume his second smoking gun is to probably bring up like Destiny or Dan Saltman in it, with the hopes that I get banned. Because if I don't back out of that conversation, I get banned. If I back out of that conversation when that happens, he will go, oh, you ran away from Destiny. You're so scared. You're just like Steven Crowder. And that's the problem. Okay, he is going to try to present it. I'm telling you right now, if he tries to do some shit like that, that means he doesn't want to have a real conversation with me on this issue, that he's going to try to pull some shtick because he knows that he can't have this real conversation with me, okay? Just like he thought that Sam Seder would agree with him, and then he realized that even in the most charitable pro-Palestine approach that he tried to present himself as, Sam was able to, without knowing anything else, Sam was able to recognize that, no, there is a lot of defense for Israel here that is unconscionable, especially when we're comparing it to 16 months of endless bombing, child murder. He saw through Ethan.
I think that's part
and he
of
didn't
what
get what he
really
wanted
jaded
across.
the
So now
Israeli
I think he's going to be
public, too.
petty
It's
and try to get me banned.
Look
or
what happens
in an
when
effort
you
for
want to
myself to
support
preserve
peace,
myself in this
Obviously,
situation,
that's-
and I back away, I click out
obviously
when
that's
he
not-
does the
I don't
Destiny
think the
thing,
right conclusion,
then
but that was
he's
their
gonna say, "Oh, you
conclusion. It's
ran
like, all
away."
the people that wanted peace were murdered by Hamas.
See, like I have, friends or family even that will say that they don't believe there's an innocent Israeli, and I think obviously stuff like that is super dangerous, and
I agree.
I'll never
Thank
agree
you.
with that. But in terms of like, the Pew research is often what's referenced, and again, Sam brought that up that there was only 19% of people.
Can't you do it
in May.
offline? Are you fucking insane? You think I would let Ethan control the narrative and manipulate the footage by doing it offline? No, of course I'm going to fucking stream my side. Why would I do that? What are you guys talking about? No, dual streaming the YouTube is not the same, okay? And I can't get permission from the CEO. Contrary to what people think, Dan does not fucking listen to my demands, okay? That's not a thing. They've already explained that I will get banned.
Do they want to end the war? I think this is. I mean, yeah, it's disturbing. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, he said Hamas
Let me
could have
see
ended
what
the
this
war
says.
if they released the
Israelis are
hostages.
divided
Hamas did
over the country's
offer to
military
release all
response.
hostages.
Sent
Hamas
who
says
say
it will release all
Israel's
civilian
military response
hostages
against Hamas
if
in Gaza
IDF
has
stops
gone too
strikes.
far.
That was on October 17th,
about right.
2023. This is from the
Not
Jerusalem
gone far
Post,
enough,
by
which
the
is
way.
crazy, right?
So
That's
understand, when he says all of these things about Israel, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He's just not knowledgeable on this. This is the unfortunate reality, okay? In the most charitable estimation of the past year, if I'm making the most charitable assessment that is like literally impossibly charitable here, he simply doesn't know what he's talking about, and he has people in his ear that's constantly fucking feeding him wrong information, and he's just regurgitating that because it pairs perfectly with his narcissistic tendencies. Ethan Klein has been a victim of anti-Semitic smears and anti-Semitic attacks his entire career. This is not something that I would ever. This is not something that is in dispute. Okay, this is something that I know. This is something that I've brought up over and over again. Now he thinks the real anti-Semitic shit that he has received is now paired up with people who are anti-Zionist within his own community, and he can't let that go. He thinks all of this is a direct consequence of people saying that he's a Zionist because he's a Jew. Oh, I've said the right things. Why do you still get mad at me? I've said the right things. Why do you still get mad at me? I'm simply making a joke about Aaron Bushnell. I've said the right things. Why are you still getting mad at me? Why are you leaving my community? It must be because some guy is out there feeding information and radicalizing this audience, radicalizing my audience. It must be Hasan. And it's really interesting that he said this, like he's inferred this, he's implied this over and over again. And for the first year after our podcast ended, up until October of last year, October of 2024, up until October of 2024, I consistently defended Ethan up until he started going after actively and getting and successfully deplatforming pro-Palestinian advocates. I did not say a single thing. I defended him because I didn't know. I thought his initial October 7 response was sufficient. I thought he probably has a little bit of liberal Zionism in him, okay? But he is amenable. He is someone who has a heart. He is open-minded. He is open-minded to someone like myself who I believe he trusts. And I was wrong. He was not open-minded to this position at all. I thought I could move him from having like a squishy liberal Zionist position to basically someone who was a anti-Zionist. You know, Hasan, just show up Friday, bro.
That both are important. And obviously,
Hasan's going to show?
Again,
of course
the
I'm going to show.
totality of what's happening in Gaza is not in dispute about
Hasan
which
is
is
not
like
coming
more.
Friday? What do you mean?
But I do think that it's important. And I care about Israel, and I care about Israelis. You know, that's it. And so I choose to see the good and to see the optimistic. And like, obviously I have no effect over what the public thinks about the war. I'm not fucking living there. I'm not. When I was living there, I voted against Netanyahu.
Please don't try to bring a banned person
And by the
on.
way, Netanyahu lost the popular vote. He only won because he made a coalition with some psychopath.
Hasan is a
like,
fake. Hasan, stop telling your chat we fuck with Destiny. Please don't try to bring a banned person on.
When I voted, won the popular vote.
I will
because
get
of the
banned.
parliamentary system where you make coalitions
we'll
to get
have
over
to
50%.
Leave the conversation.
They were unable to secure the victory.
I think Netanyahu may be the devil. Like, honestly, even his voice, I think he may be the fucking devil.
Why the fuck am I
And
a
he's just
paid member,
passing
by the
out
way? How does this
beepers
work?
to
Did they give
everyone.
me
He
like a
gave
lifetime
the gold
paid
beepers
membership?
That's dude. That's so fucked
He gave
up.
one to a senator. And
I
then-
think that's so.
Or congressman. I forget who it was. He's like, yo,
it was John Fetterman.
Yeah, he's like, yo, that was dope when you guys did that. I have a family friend whose son had a beeper go through his stomach, like, and it's just fucking
I just
crazy.
don't-
The president's like taking a picture with
I
the.
didn't even bring up
I don't
Destiny.
think
I said a banned
just like
person.
idol-
Dan Saltman is also a fucking banned person.
It's just fucking bad and terrible.
Looking for the anti-Semitism in this community. Anyway.
Those beepers was like nauseating. Like, what are you doing?
Look at this. Look at these fucking freaks. So some party with a Diddy at a brothel. What the fuck is this statement, dude? These people are brain broken.
He is. You're right. He is. But ultimately, I think that's ultimately where
How about Boner Box? I mean, I don't care about that. He's not banned, so who gives a shit? I assume he will. I don't think he's gonna have this conversation with me directly. Okay, I don't think he's gonna have this conversation with me directly. I think he's gonna try and desperately bring someone else on to either get me banned or to have this conversation in his stead, because he knows that this conversation will not be this conversation will not go in his direction, will not go the way he wants it to. Every time they claim there's anti-Semitism in the community, they're always conflating it with and referencing anti-Zionism. I know.
Hasan is pathetically typing in our chat again.
Wait, what do you mean?
I can talk now or Friday. I don't care. Up to you. Please don't try to bring a band. Bro, don't worry. I'm not doing that. You're afraid I'm going to bring on Destiny? That's stupid. I'm not going to do that.
Stop.
I promise you, Hasan.
It's not just Destiny. It's
I will
Dan
not bring on
Saltman as well.
Destiny.
He's
In
also
fact, the people
banned.
here will not allow me to bring on Destiny.
Fuck no.
I'm
no
interested,
Dan
Hasan,
Saltman
in being
either.
honest.
And it's not because
You know,
I'm
I'm gonna
afraid of
take
them.
that-
I can't. I will get banned. I need people to understand this is because I will get banned. If he brings on Sam Hyde or Dan Saltman or Destiny, I will get banned instantly. Okay? And I didn't even name Destiny in that. The reason why I said don't bring a banned person on was because I don't want him to bring any banned person on and do some fuck shit to try to get me banned. Okay?
Wait, and this is why I prefaced what I was saying was I'm not an expert. Finding polling, I was wrong saying that support for a two-state solution was at a high. Looks like it kind of plateaued around 55% throughout the 2010s. But it was at a high in 2010 of 71% of Israelis supported a two-state solution. It looks like that number is now in.
Anyway, all right, we're done with this portion of the broadcast. We're gonna get back to the real news now. Please clarify why you would get banned from Papa Twitch, because Twitch has a very hard policy. Twitch is a platform that actually rigorously applies its terms of service. And because of that reason, I've been banned for silly shit like saying cracker in the past, right? And like when Aiden Ross was banned, for example, if someone were to have him on their stream, they would get banned.